11 o'clock sharp in the Netherlands, 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Bangladesh. I think it's time to get started with this webinar. While additional attendees might join this event, I would like to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to this webinar about light engineering as part of the Bangladesh-Netherlands Investment Summit, which is organized by the Embassy of the People's Republic of Bangladesh in the Netherlands, in cooperation with the Netherlands Embassy in Dhaka and the Netherlands Enterprise Agency RVO. My name is Matthias Brine. I'm one of the directors of Larive International. We are the partners of Lightcastle partners in Bangladesh. And it's my pleasure to be your moderator for today. Bangladesh is a very interesting country. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Southeast Asia, 170 million people, and being the fastest growing economy in the past decade in the region. I'm glad that you joined here today. We have invited a selective group of entrepreneurs, policymakers, and they will share their views and experiences about doing business in Bangladesh in the engineering and manufacturing industry. It's my pleasure to welcome them today. Shortly setting the scene about the light engineering industry in Bangladesh. It's a sector which has been growing rapidly in recent years. We've noticed investments from foreign companies, from the US, Europe, but also from Asian markets. We've seen parties landing in industries such as electronics, software, chemicals, energy. And to give an example, Korean conglomerate Samsung recently decided to not only assemble their activities in Bangladesh, but also opening up their manufacturing capabilities in the market, which is also further triggering investments and innovations upstream in the value chain. So we are excited about the opportunities of light engineering, light manufacturing activities in Bangladesh. We have a distinctive panelists which are, from their own perspective, will share their views and experiences of doing business in this industry in Bangladesh. Before we go into the panelists, I firstly would like to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Riaz Hamidullah, Ambassador of Bangladesh in the Netherlands, who has been the initiator of this initiative. And also we're pleased, Mr. Ambassador, that you allowed us to organize this event today. I would like to give the floor to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you, Matthias, and those of us from Netherlands, good morning still, and those of us in Dhaka and Bangladesh and beyond, good afternoon, good evening even appropriately, someone beyond Bangladesh and Netherlands. Very quickly as to where and how we are here. We had just had a very engrossing, deeper, reflective conversations in the first webinar on agriculture and now into the second one. But why is this webinar? Because some of us are connecting for the first time in this, who has not been in the previous one. For some time this summer, we were mulling that how to make a pitch for Bangladesh, and we realized that the economic engagements between the two sides are not mapped at all. We know a little bit about in terms of tulip, potato, and of late some collaboration in seed sector, etc., and also water. But gradually we realized that here's another, apart from agriculture, another very potential area, light engineering in Bangladesh. We take great pride in, we are very bullish about it. But when we look at Netherlands and we see so many SMEs dotted all over Netherlands and also across global supply chain, we keep on wondering that how can there be connect? And we realized that while Bangladesh has market, while Bangladesh has pool of workers, technicians, and hands, so to say, that's on a more horizontal level. But Netherlands, not simply agro-machinery or agro mechanical aspects, but also now thanks to 4IR, artificial intelligence, IoT, all combined, brings in phenomenal technology. In Netherlands, there is Eindhoven, but beneath Eindhoven, at different levels, there are technologies, solutions, innovation across Netherlands, which promise to come into Bangladesh to address, to tap our markets, but also to eventually to go into supply chain. What do I mean by that? What we look at from the embassy and the government is that it's simply not to cater for Bangladesh market. Matthias was right that this week, a little earlier, Fair Electronics, when they have decided to manufacture the top edge, the Samsung TVs, intelligent TVs, then that actually augurs well. There are talks about government to formulate policy for electric car in 5 to 10 years time in the land. If one picks up these two instances, that will only indicate or put our fingers that eventually behind them will be coming a series of or range of SMEs, solution providers, tech, individual innovators to come in, maybe even in design. So that's actually encouraged us to stitch into this second webinar on light engineering. Before I give it back to moderator Matthias, two things. One is that I'd also request everyone to kindly take note that this Thursday, 10th of December at 5 o'clock in Bangladesh time, 12 noon, we'll also be releasing a co-produced Larive Light Castle, the study of mapping the economic engagement, which is a fascinating piece of work, that would provide you lots of things. Secondly, in the chat box, the participants, if you keep on dropping your not details, but your specific ideas, specific questions about possible collaboration from both Netherlands side and also Bangladeshi side, I think that will be a sparking conversation eventually, as we did see in the previous webinar. I would also say that please don't look at Bangladesh in terms of 173 million people, not simply in terms of 35 or 34 million middle and affluent class, but it's a little market where things are mellowing down because of the trade advantages that we have or are going to have across Asia. Not because the border between Bangladesh and India is becoming actually economic border. So that should provide, in spite of all the challenges or constraints that we may have, point out to a lot of possibilities and the things in the horizon, including climate change, which is such a challenge. Netherlands is no exception, where climate resilient tools, machinery, solutions through light engineering course could be one. So my last point would be that light engineering is not at all to be looked at only through modest bicycle industry, which often we tend to get into. With that, I'll come back towards the very end. And last not the least is that the Dutch friends, please you may take note of that in the chat or in this we have in the participation many of the credible, responsible actors from private sector in Bangladesh. So in terms of your giving signal, you're asking questions or making indications, the chat box could be extremely useful and beneficial. Thank you. Over to Matthias.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. So before we go into more detail on the opportunities of the light engineering industry, my colleague Sahed will provide a presentation about the opportunities in the market. I think there will be firstly a video on behalf of the Netherlands Embassy in Dhaka. The ambassador, Mr. Hague, who's not here this morning, but he has provided us a video message. Sahed, could we start the video, please?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to the first ever virtual Netherlands-Bangladesh Investment Summit. Bangladesh wants to do business with the Netherlands wants to do business with Bangladesh. Please allow me first to thank Ambassador Riyad Hamidullah. From the moment he started as the Bangladesh ambassador in The Hague, only last summer, he has hit the ground running. And not at a leisurely pace, I should say, but really with a sprint. He and his team have worked tirelessly to make this summit a success. And I am very grateful for that. I am grateful because of my warm personal relation with Ambassador Hamidullah, but also because we share a professional goal. I think it's rather unique in the diplomatic world, where so often priorities are roughly the same, but do not always align for the full 100%. But in this case, it does. We both want to stimulate business, trade and investments between the Netherlands and Bangladesh. Ambassador Hamidullah does his work primarily in The Hague, while I do mine primarily in Dhaka. So two sides of the same coin. Of course, the good relations between the Netherlands and Bangladesh are not new. We have stood shoulder to shoulder with Bangladesh for the past 50 years. Bangladesh has come a long way since its independence towards a hunger-free, poverty-free and deprivation-free Bangladesh. And here we are today, Delta countries at the dawn of a new era. An era in which Bangladesh graduates from the least developed countries group, an era of mutual investment and trade, an era of opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, because opportunity is why you're here today, with impressive GDP growth figures, a rapidly expanding middle class, and a strategic position in Asia, Bangladesh is open for business. And the world is just only now realizing this. Doing business in Bangladesh is not without its challenges, but pioneering is never easy. During my time in Bangladesh, I have found out that the Bangladeshi people have an incredible sense for business. They're always willing to think with you. I've also found out that you will experience tremendous hospitality as an essential part of any relationship in Bangladesh. But you don't have to take only my word for it. There's a great lineup of experienced speakers today who will gladly inform you and answer your questions. Some of them represent Dutch companies that have been active in Bangladesh for decades. I hope they will motivate you to consider Bangladesh as a next Asian tiger, the Bengal tiger. Because I believe that is what Bangladesh needs, better branding. Too often, Bangladesh is considered to be disaster-prone, heavily populated and poor. Those challenges do exist, but one of my key messages to the government of Bangladesh is to promote the opportunities and the positive sides of this country. And again, Ambassador Hamidullah understands that better than anyone else. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're also able to see it too, then the potential advantages of being an early mover could reap serious rewards. In the follow-up to this summit, we will continue to work on increasing the available market intelligence for several sectors, and we will explore the opportunities for mutual visits and trade missions. Feel free to reach out to my team with any and all questions, and they will be happy to assist you anytime. While this summit is virtual, the majority of the participants are based in the Netherlands. I hope that once the COVID-19 situation allows for travel again, that I will be able to welcome you in Dhaka in 2021. Together with Ambassador Hamidullah and his team, my team and I stand at your disposal. I wish you a productive and inspiring meeting today, and we hope to see you back here all in Dhaka. Thank you.
An inspiring message on behalf of the Netherlands ambassador in Bangladesh. Then it's now time to have a look at some figures about the macroeconomic developments in Bangladesh and specifically in the light engineering industry. I would like to give the floor to my colleague Zahed to share his views and of the Light Castle team. Zahed, floor is yours.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you everyone for coming and joining the session. And we are very excited to have all of you from Bangladesh and the Netherlands. So I will be shedding some light on the light engineering sector. But before going there, I would like to shed some light or give the bird's eye view of our country's economy. When our country became independent almost 50 years back, it was termed as a basket case. Bangladesh was one of the poorest countries. It used to be one of the poorest countries, not anymore. Over the last 20 years, 10 to 15 years particularly, we have done phenomenally well in terms of our growth. Our economy has been performing very well. Our GDP growth has averaged around 6% over the last 10 years. Alongside, despite the pandemic, our economy is expected to grow by at least 4% according to the IMF. And by the year 2022, it's expected to rebound to 8%, which would be the highest in South Asia. In terms of the per capita GDP, we also have seen a significant uptick in the per capita GDP. And you would be pleased to know that Bangladesh has, for the first time, eclipsed India in terms of per capita income, and this lead is expected to be permanent. So how did we become such a development wonder? I think the World Bank has termed us as a development wonder. So just wanted to shed some light on that. So Sir was mentioning about a number of plethora of factors. As Sir has already mentioned, we have a very small country, at least in geographical size. Our country size is equal to that of Iowa. Our population size is 170 million, which is half that of the United States. And we are all ensconced in a very small place. So particularly, we have 1,260 people in one area. And we also have a very large working population. 56.2% of the population falls within the working population. And our population is quite young, with median age of 27 years. Just as you can understand, we are experiencing a demographic dividend. Alongside, we are also experiencing the benefits of a density dividend, because a lot of people are in one place, and it's quite easy to market to these population. In terms of our inclusiveness, you will see that female participation in Bangladesh is much significantly higher compared to the neighboring countries. Here, 36% of our workforce, female workforce, are employed, and which is significantly higher compared to India, Pakistan, Nepal, and few other regional countries, which is quite surprising given the fact that we are a Muslim majority country. This shows that we, as a country, as an economy, we are quite liberal. In terms of our income, our per capita income has been growing. It's nearing 2,000. We are going to become, we are finally going to graduate as a middle income nation within the year 2024. We have met all the graduation criteria in 2018, which is a great sign. In terms of our domestic market is growing at a very significant pace. Our BOP population, our aspirant class, our emerging middle class is growing at a significant pace. As you can see, according to a study by the Boston Consulting Group, our MSC, the middle and affluent class, is going to grow to 34 million within the year 2025, which is even, the size is even bigger than of many European countries as well. So in terms of the FX reserve, our FX reserve is at an all-time high of 41 billion, which would easily cover our import payments for the last 8 months. In terms of our inflation rate is quite manageable at 6%, and we have a very low debt to GDP ratio, which is around 36% compared to close to 100% for many of our neighboring countries. In terms of our drivers or competitive advantage, I would stress on the fact that our labor force, the labor rates are quite competitive. If you compare with other neighboring countries, it's still competitive, while efficiency is a factor, but even if you discount the efficiency, we still are one of the cheapest destinations. In terms of managerial wage as well, the same is true as well. Also in terms of electricity tariff rate, our tariff rates are on par or at the lower end of the spectrum. So if we shed some light on the Dutch participation in the Bangladesh economy, we'll see that Netherlands has been investing, they have continued to invest over the last 20-30 years. Particularly FMO has been quite active. For example, they have recently made an investment in ACI Motors. The deal size was worth 13 million. Alongside, they also invested in a few other blue chip companies like Grameenphone and DBBL. And there are also some other investments which includes BM Energy and also in some other sectors. In terms of our export, last year, Bangladesh has exported close to 685 million euro to Netherlands. And apart from that, we have also exported footwear worth 64 million, and also fisheries and frozen food in that country. In terms of sector concentration, the highest concentration is in the food and agriculture sector. Alongside, Netherlands constitutes 21% of our FDI inflow in the year 2018-19. In terms of our comparison, we know that our FDI rate is quite low. There is a lot of room for improvement. FDI accounts for just 3% of our overall investments. And we believe that with improving ease of doing business ranking, we would be able to attract more investment, particularly from the European market and also from Netherlands in general. If you look at the apparel sector, we'll see that it's our stellar performer. In a way, it's our bread and butter. It constitutes roughly 84 to 85% of our country's export. Although due to the COVID, our export has gone down quite a bit, but it's expected to rebound, provided if the second wave does not hit the European and the US market that hard. And in terms of our position, we are the second largest, and we have been employing a lot of female workers. 60% of our workforce are accounted by female workers in general. In terms of some of the other sectors, we know Dutch love bicycles. Bicycle is one of the growing sectors, although it's a small sector when you compare with the more established RMG, but it's definitely an emerging sector. And there are quite a few case studies. For example, Germany's Cube has teamed up with Magna Cycles, which is one of our leading cycle manufacturers, and they have exported or they have signed a deal worth $1 million in 2018. In terms of our export destination, quite naturally, EU is one of our biggest destination, followed by UK, India, Australia, and Taiwan. And we also have a growing cycling culture in Bangladesh. We have a group called BD Cyclists, which has around 132,000 team members. In terms of our electronics and light engineering sectors, we will see that our home appliance market is growing. As you can see, since our per capita income has grown, people can afford more of these appliances like television, air conditioner, refrigerators, and we can see that the market has grown. Although there is a scope for improvement, but it has grown at double-digit figures over the last 5 to 6 years. The market size currently, the television market size stands for 340 million euro. Refrigerator market is 650 million euro. There are many international players who are operating in Bangladesh. Alongside, there are some local players like Walton, which are outsourcing or which are selling in the international market, both under their own brand and they're also white labeling. In terms of our smartphone market, as we know that almost 60% of the smartphones sold in the market are sold or manufactured in Bangladesh. It's expected that within the next 2 years, all the smartphones used in Bangladesh would be produced within the country. We have some conducive taxation policies or duty structure, which is egging the sector forward. And as we can see, since we have a young population, the smartphone penetration, although it's 38%, it's expected to actually sort of grow over the last 5 years. And when we believe that it will create a lot of positive impact. Although we have covered a few sectors, the light engineering sector has quite a few other facades, and we hope to get some insights from the panelists during our session today. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Matthias.
Yes, thank you, Zahat. Well, I would say summarizing strong macroeconomic fundamentals, which will fuel future growth of the Bangladeshi engineering sector. As mentioned, we gathered today a panel of innovators, entrepreneurs, policymakers from different angles in the light engineering industry. We have representatives from packaging, energy, textiles, financing. So thank you all for being here today. I would like to start with Marcel Schouten. Marcel is representing LC Packaging, which has been active in Bangladesh already for almost 15 years. We understand you have 2 manufacturing plants in the country, and we would like to learn a bit more, Marcel. Why did you choose Bangladesh for investing?
Yes, Matthias. First of all, thank you for inviting me, and yes, I'm glad to share our experience of LC Packaging in Bangladesh. Why did we choose for Bangladesh? Well, maybe we have to go back first a bit in time. Bangladesh was already known to LC for quite some years. In other words, we were also not afraid of Bangladesh. Why was Bangladesh known to us? LC Packaging has a history in jute bags, We have a strong division still today of 25 and 50 kg jute bags, jute to pack and export seed potatoes. The nice thing is that also the seed potatoes coming from the Netherlands are also going back to Bangladesh in jute bags coming from Bangladesh. So that's a nice circle. But that is a reason that we know Bangladesh, that we have been visiting Bangladesh since the 70s, and that we are also familiar with Bangladesh. But speak about Dutch Banglapack, this joint venture factories which we are running today. That is not about jute bags. That is about plastic bulk packaging for packing, let's say 1,000 kg materials for food, pharma, and specialty chemicals industries. A product which is today a strong pillar inside LC Packaging. And back in the period, let's say 2000, 2010, the FIBC division was growing fast. LC Packaging already had a strong manufacturing footprint in Europe and India. And ideally, you know, sales were growing, expansion was needed, and then ideally we should look for another geographical area. Like I said in the beginning, at LC Packaging, we are familiar with Bangladesh. We knew that there was, of course, a strong manufacturing and export infrastructure. As already heard before in the introduction, the country has a young workforce willing to learn and develop. And there were, of course, incentives available in these days in forms of grants and subsidies for investments in countries like Bangladesh. And most important, a relationship with a trusted partner. So all combined, it was for us a logical step to expand into Bangladesh.
Excellent, excellent. Before we move forward, I would like to underline once more to the audience, you have the opportunity to raise your questions via chat box. I will try to address these to the panelists or either the ambassador, His Excellency Mr. Hamidullah. So please share your ambitions, your interests, so we might be able to tap on these. Getting back to Marcel shortly. Interesting to learn about your position and how you got established in Bangladesh. Nowadays, you're operating 2 plants. Just for our indication, how many people does LC employ in the Bangladeshi market?
At the moment, in Dutch Bangladesh, we have around 1,150 employees, and right. that number is still growing. So maybe we come back later also on it, but we are now preparing ourselves for another expansion project, which should bring the production up with another 600,000-700,000 so-called FIBCs, flexible intermediate bulk containers, and for the same reason, of course, then the number of employees will grow again. So yeah, quite a number, I would say.
Yeah, that's great. I think with these numbers, you probably are one of the larger Dutch investors, at least in terms of employment in Bangladesh. For other Dutch companies which might consider Bangladesh as an investment opportunity or as a country to do business, what would be your key takeaways from almost 15 years being active in the market, and what kind of changes have you witnessed in recent years, which also contributed to your decision to expand your activities in Bangladesh?
Yeah, well, first reaction, I think we are extremely happy that we jumped into this venture and also adventure. Looking back, I think you can almost write a book, of course, if you look at 10, 12 years back. But what we see in Bangladesh is again, of course, that with this young workforce, motivated and open for training and development. Factory staff, if I see our factory staff, they're extremely dedicated, eager to develop, well educated, and of course English is a business language in Bangladesh, which is a great help for investments. As already mentioned as well, good macroeconomic stabilities resulting in growth rates which are, I think, averaging 10% a year in the last decades. Another important matter, I think, is that there is a kind of informal patching of the US dollar with the Bangladesh taka, leading to fairly stable currencies, which is also very good, of course, for doing business. We always always say that going to Bangladesh is not for a quick couple of years. That is, I think, a key takeaway, you know, that establishing and developing, let's say in our case, establishing and developing a factory, manufacturing packaging products, high-end customers for high-end customers in food, pharma, and specialty chemicals is something you do for the long run. People may be afraid of some bureaucracy. Of course, it is there, but at the same time, there are also strong systems in place, you know, which may take time, but they all work. Regulations, documentations can be a bit complex, but it is all workable. Of course, I think also the Bangladesh government is working on making documentation maybe a bit more friendly for investors and exporters. But all in all, it is all workable. And of course, like every venture, you know, you have unexpected challenges. For instance, we had during the period 2013-2018, we had our challenges with our gas connection loads. This was hampering our production output, increasing our production costs. But in the end, also there we find a way to work with it and be in business like that. So key takeaways again: strongly advise new entrepreneurs to walk with the help and the support of the Dutch embassy. We've already seen the Dutch ambassador, and it's really like that. They are there to help and to support. FMO, a great help to us. I can also come back later to it. The RVO, the Dutch Enterprise Agency, all trusted partners to LC Packaging. And last but not least, a trusted local partner. That is my main advice to new investors. For example, our joint venture partners, Mr. Abdul Muhammad, our managing director of Dutch Bangla, a brilliant guy who also has been brave enough to come back after his studies to Bangladesh. He finished his master's in economics at Cambridge University. His father, Mr. Abdul Ahad, our initial partner in initiating this joint venture, and 3 other local partners, and they have made really our joint venture a success. Their knowledge, their dedication really made a difference.
Excellent, Marcel. Yeah, inspiring story. You did mention that during the past couple of years you had some challenges with energy. That is perhaps a nice stepping stone to our second panel member, Mr. André Hendricks, who is one of the directors of BM Energy. André, we see some storage facilities at the background. Could you please elaborate a bit on BM Energy and your experiences in Bangladesh?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Matthias, for introducing me. Yeah, BM Energy, you see behind me some of the storage tanks we have in near Chittagong. And BM Energy is basically a company that imports bottles and distributes gas in Bangladesh. We started this venture almost 8-9 years ago, beginning of 2012, and started our operation in 2015. And today we are one of the largest LPG energy providers in Bangladesh, number 3-4 in the market. So we have seen a tremendous growth with our company BM Energy, and today we have actually several facilities. Chittagong is our main import facility and bottling plant, but we also have a bottling plant and import facility near Khulna. We are building a new plant near Dhaka. We have a smaller plant out there, but we are building a new one. Bogra is underway, and our latest venture is to build auto gas stations, and we are building a network of around 400 auto gas refill stations for the booming LPG car business in Bangladesh. So we've had quite a turbulent ride in the last 8 years with BM Energy in Bangladesh, but so far so good.
Yeah. So lots of new ventures, investments upcoming. Could you elaborate a bit about the opportunities in the energy sector in Bangladesh? I mean, you're stepping, for example, in autogas. In short, could you describe a bit the dynamics in this industry?
Lots of dynamics. Well, we have the dynamics are diverse. First, there's a booming population and a booming demand for energy. Mr. Zahed also already explained a little bit about the growth of the middle income class. Well, that drives energy consumption, but that also drives cars for autogas business. Growing population, growing middle class income, growing demand for gas. That is what the demand for gas in general drives. And in the long run, there are some challenges for Bangladesh in the energy side. Natural resources are limited, so we're definitely looking at the need for energy import, and LPG is a clean and reliable source of energy in Bangladesh. So yeah, we see a bright future for LPG consumption in the future, and you see a lot of conversion now going on for cars changing from fossils to LPG run cars.
Yeah, and what I perceive is that your business is quite capital intensive. What is, I would say, the key takeaways or recommendations you would have for other Dutch companies active in, let's say, capital intensive industries when considering to enter in Bangladesh?
Well, you're right. Zahed showed some figures already of our investment. And you're right, our business is relatively low on labor intensity. We maybe only supply work for a couple of hundred people within our plants. So with our investments, I think the phrasing is we kicked our can down the road in the last few years. We started already longer ago with our trusted partner, Mr. Muzaffer Rahman, who is our partner in several ventures. And from those earlier ventures, which date back from, well, maybe 2006 already, we invested further in our other ventures together with him. And like Marcel indicated earlier, having a reliable partner in Bangladesh is a key to being successful. That is at least what we think from our side. So and having that partner who is also been with us and stood on our side in the last 15 years, that brings forward our investments, I think.
Yeah, I think that has been mentioned already by other panelists, and also in the previous webinar we had this morning on agro-food, that having identifying and selecting a good partner is crucial for your success in Bangladesh. We'll come back on that later on. I would like to give the floor shortly to Dr. Hubana Hoek. I hope I pronounced the name right. She is representing the Association of Bangladesh Textile Apparel Entrepreneurs. I understand that the association represents a group of companies which is exporting annually over 34 billion US in value, amongst others to the Netherlands, we learned from the presentation from Zahed. However, next to textiles and apparel, members of this association are also eyeing to diversify their business amongst us in the light engineering and manufacturing industries. Dr. Hoek, could you share your views on the considerations of members of your association?
Thank you, Matthias, for allowing me to speak, Excellency, and all the esteemed panelists. Bangladesh RMG industry, the ready-made garment sector, actually currently consists 84% of the export basket. So that is by itself an overdependence. in terms of economic complexity, in terms of product, process, and value chain, we are not at a very, very good place. So at this point of time, what we really, really need to do is make sure that we actually diversify very fast. And that's the need of the hour. So we've been, within ourselves, we've been talking about it, and we've also suggested to our Bangladesh Investment Development Authority, BIDA, so that we can make sure that we have some kind of a structure like Vietnam did in terms of sector diversification council, where we bring in, MNEs, and of course, we link ourselves. Very often what happens is the SMEs are not linked to FDI opportunities. So for us, it's important that that we actually draw that sync. I can only tell you that only in our sector, if we consider light engineering, the RMG textile sector needs, first needs is capital machineries along with spare parts. These are all being imported right now. Currently, we are importing more than 100 spare parts for the industry, and imported spare parts almost equal to USD $1.6 billion. And that's what we've imported in 2018, 2019. And that we have imported for only top 27 items. If I have to break them down, I can only tell you that we have just imported washing machinery worth 271 million. We have imported 222 million worth sewing machines. We have imported $174 million worth of just air and vacuum pump, gas compressors, and fans. We've imported $159 million worth of steam and other vapor generating boilers. We have imported $154 million worth of printing machinery, $136 million of filtering machinery, $75 million worth of central heating boilers, and $63 million worth of electric motors and generator. So that gives you more or less an idea of how much we import. So we see an immediate interest from our sector to link with anybody who's interested in FDI. So any kind of joint venture would be more than welcome. Any kind of even 100% FDI would be welcome in Bangladesh, because light engineering is the way to go. And you know what? It also relates very well to our labor force, because with the next threat of the fourth industrial revolution, we also need to reskill our labor force, because we want to go into value-added production. So for us, it's very important that we move towards that direction. And I can also tell you that so far, what has happened is, in terms of FDI, the possible synergies could happen in direct infrastructure, meaning you can basically set up your industries here, or you can do knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer. You could impact us in a lot of ways. We are open for consultancies. We are open for joint ventures, and we need to make sure that you come into this country. And yes, there are lots of challenges and there are lots of hiccups, but which country in the world doesn't have hiccups? Rather, you have a competitive labor force here. You have an extremely willing government, which is now setting up so many special economic zones just to welcome you. So it makes a sense. And as you listen to the Dutch ambassador in Bangladesh, you will very well understand where his heart lies. And he's called us the Bengal Tigers. So it's time for us to join hands together as the biggest association leading basically the largest exporters front. I think it would be worthwhile for us to engage with you. And while I heard my other colleagues speaking about their partners in Bangladesh, I can only tell you that we offer the best that partnership can offer. You will find very worthy hosts here who will be your friends and your partners for a long time to come. So we welcome you all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Hague. This is inspiring and a clear opening also for Dutch companies to engage in Bangladesh. And definitely your association and your members will be to be considered. So that was about, let's say, opportunities for diversifying next to textile. But if you look to a bit more closer to the textile industry, which you are representing, there might also be opportunities for further value addition. For example, in the Netherlands, we also have quite a strong design industry, initiatives such as the Amsterdam Design Week. Could you elaborate a bit on your experience of working with Dutch companies active in the textile and design segment, and which opportunities do you perceive for the coming years?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. So there are two things that we're really interested in. One is sector diversification, another is product diversification. So I can only tell you that, there is a disconnect between what we produce and export and what the world buys. For instance, the world buys around $9 billion worth of just women's blouses, and we only supply around 300 million. So there is a disconnect. So what we need to do is, we are basically a very cotton dependent country. So we need to diversify into man-made fibers. So that is also a call for collaboration when we say that, you could set up your backward linkage here, a man-made fiber-based textile unit, and we'd be happy to partner with you. And in terms of value addition, just within the current supply processes, what we can offer is, we can offer sampling, we can offer manufacturing, but yes, Amsterdam Fashion Week is very attractive for us, and so far the Dutch have been very supportive towards even industrial safety in our case. So for R&D, you could join hands with us, and we would actually benefit very much, because there are two things which are missing massively in our supply chain. One is innovation in terms of design. We really don't have the exposure yet. We're great with basics, but we have the capacity with all our green factories where we don't get paid the green price. We have the capacity to expand, to have more complex production processes and have more complex product. So in that, if you could partner with us, we would more than welcome your input there, and you could perhaps take us to the next level. But the second point is, of course, branding Bangladesh. And we have just launched a new slogan for our industry, and that is #GoHumanGoGreen. That is another part that you can actually help us. There is a direct link between a consumer and sustainable lives and livelihoods in Bangladesh. I'm talking about the workers. So that's a story you can help us tell the rest of the world. So I hope that by knowledge transfer, through R&D, and by branding Bangladesh, you will be by our side, and that we can actually make it to the global front. Thank you.
Excellent. This is an inspiring message. And at this moment, I would like to hand over to Katelijn Naafs. She is representing VNO. VNO is one of the largest, maybe the largest investor, directly and indirectly, in Bangladesh. Katelijn, you have been working in Asia for quite a while. By the way, not only Bangladesh, but also the Philippines and Vietnam, if I'm correct. So we would be keen to learn more about VNO, for those not familiar with the Institute, especially your activities in Bangladesh, but maybe you can also distinguish a bit about doing business in Bangladesh vis-a-vis other markets where you have exposure, such as the Philippines and Vietnam, where you have been working personally. So glad to have you here, Katelijn. Please share your views and experiences about doing business in Bangladesh.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Happy to be speaking about Bangladesh. I've been visiting the country since 2013 on a very regular basis. I'll start with a little bit of background on FMO. FMO is the Dutch Development Bank. So we've been set up as a public-private partnership in 1970 to finance entrepreneurs and develop private sector in developing countries. If you look at Bangladesh, we've been working there for over 30 years. We are one of the founders of Dutch Bangla Bank. So the Dutch in Dutch Bangla Bank refers to FMO. And that's also one of the investments that we are very proud of being associated, even now, after 30 years, still being part of the bank in name, even though we're not a shareholder anymore. And I think if we look at FMO's period of investing in Bangladesh, we've seen the country grow in that period. So where we originally started with financing telecom companies and telecom towers, you see that the Bangladesh banks have been able to pick that up. There's no role for us to do that anymore. And Bangladesh is able to support and grow these companies themselves. Where many years ago we with financing gas-powered energy plants because it was the only source of energy in Bangladesh. We've now moved also in a country like Bangladesh to setting up renewable energy projects. And you see that as the company grows, we as FMO move to different sectors such as renewable energy. As Matthias has said, I'm active as an individual in quite a few Asian countries, and FMO as a whole is active with debt and equity all around the globe. And one of the interesting things to see is that if you look at our debt portfolio, the Bangladesh portfolio is actually pretty well on track and have limited arrears. If you compare that to some of the neighboring countries, not naming any big neighbor in particular, but our Bangladesh portfolio from the debt side is actually doing well. We see a lot of creativity and flexibility within the Bangladesh entrepreneurs that we work with. When I first started visiting Bangladesh, it was a period with a lot of hartals. So for the Dutch people, a lot of strikes. And at that point in time, around that time, there was a year that there were about 80 days of strike, which for a lot of companies in Europe would have been disastrous without support from the government. But the Bangladesh companies were able to work around it, to find niches, to be creative, and even to grow in a year despite these strikes and the hartals that took place. And I think that's a flexibility and creativity that you don't see in every country around the world. And I think one of the other things that you very much see, and what was also mentioned earlier, that despite of COVID, Bangladesh's economy will still be growing, which is not the case for a lot of other Asian economies in that region. So a lot of positive developments there, and also developments that for us keep Bangladesh as an interesting country to invest in.
Thank you, Katelijn, for sharing your views. And I hear you mentioning that from the perspective of FMO, Bangladesh is performing very well. Looking at the light engineering industry, I mean, are there specific segments where you pinpoint opportunities, either for FMO as a financing institute, or what you recommend for Dutch companies to have a closer look at?
Yeah, it's always difficult to recommend to others what they should be doing, because obviously everybody should look at their own strength. But if you just look at the overall Bangladesh economy, it is growing despite COVID and despite a decrease in garment orders. And I think if you look at the country as a whole, you see growing sectors, many of them also linked to growing consumer spending that was also been mentioned before. So sectors that are growing are sectors like healthcare, pharma, also consumption driven, so home appliances, also transportation people are moving away from public transport. Agricultural and food processing, so FMO itself is quite active in that segment, looking at the processing of food, how to work with the smallholder farmers, but also looking at food safety and the supply chain, because ultimately everything comes together. And I think one of the other sectors that could potentially still be interesting for people is digitalization. There's still a lot going on with physical documents and physical ordering. And I think there's also an opportunity for Bangladesh to catch up with the rest of the world.
Yeah, interesting. So the digital economy, software has been mentioned prior to this webinar a number of times as potential segment to pinpoint within the light manufacturing, light engineering, which is of course quite a broad range of industries. But when listening to Katelijn, I think you describe a range of industries which might have opportunities for investment. And I think it also underlines the let's say the broader opportunities which are present in Bangladesh. Meanwhile, we get a lot of questions from the audience for the panelists. What we do is we will keep track and we will note these, and I will try to raise them to the panelists or to the ambassador later on. So don't worry. But I firstly would like to give the floor to our fifth and final panelist, Ms. Usma Chowdhury. So she has been part of one of the leading industrial Bangladeshi conglomerates, and we understand you have activities in various elements of the Bangladeshi industry. Before I go into detail on your perspectives of the Bangladeshi sector, could you describe firstly a bit about your business activities and the heritage of your organization? Ms. Usma.
Okay, thank you so much. We are from PRAN, RFL. PRAN is the brand name for our food industry, and RFL is the light engineering sector that we are active in since 1981. We are a $2 billion company, but for our food business, we have about a $1 billion income, and same as with our light engineering and plastic products. So we have been around for last 40 years now, and we have diversified in Bangladesh due to the rapid demand of the people. You have seen from Mr. Zahid's presentation that Bangladesh economy had been booming in last 40 years. Like, we have gone through a lots of changes, a lot of anomaly, however, but last couple of years we have been able to come to a place where our business economy of our country is very robust. We are growing very fast, and our GDP growth remains very steady compared to any other country of the world right now. So we have a very good future ahead of us as Bangladesh, and as Bangladesh as a brand.
Excellent. And just out of curiosity, have you been doing business with Dutch companies directly or indirectly in the past years?
We have no direct collaboration with Dutch companies, but we do do some export of our food products to Netherlands.
Okay, excellent. And if you would be in the position to invite any Dutch companies to look at Bangladesh, what would be the industries which you would like to highlight?
Okay, right now we are involved in the electronics industry. We are manufacturing fan, refrigerator, TV, monitors, all kinds of electronic items. We are producing bicycles. We are producing utensils of different kinds, starting from aluminum to plastic, combination of plastic and aluminum combination, different kinds of utensils. In Bangladesh, we can produce anything and it can be absorbed very easily. Automotive industry is growing in Bangladesh. That is something that we would request our Dutch partners to look at because it's a booming industry. We can look at the spare parts. A few minutes earlier, Ms. Rubana Haque was talking about the equipments, the machineries that she was talking about that she is importing for the textile industry. We can, rather than importing those, we can start producing it in our country. There are lots of opportunities in our country because the local demand is rising, as well as we are in a position now that we can export to lots of other nations of the world right now. As you know, like we are very much concentrated in RMG export. It is about time for us as a nation to diversify our export portfolio. So light engineering is a very good area where we can develop together.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, you mentioned bicycles, for example. You're probably aware that the Netherlands is a country where each inhabitant has at least 2 bicycles on average. So you see them everywhere. So there must be opportunities between Bangladesh and the Netherlands on developing collaborations in that field. I tried to address a number of questions we received from the audience. So maybe first of all, one for Ambassador Hamidullah. Someone from the audience raised a question if Bangladeshi companies would be keen on exporting to the Netherlands or to the European Union in a broader sense. How could the Bangladeshi embassy in the Netherlands support?
Oh, sorry, I was working, but I mean, for being put spot on, I mean, our direct answer is this webinar. Being on the ground for 5 months, if we're pulling it, and within the COVID circumstances, I hope that we are responding to the question in a very loud and clear manner as to how we look forward to this. And my second point would be that this is basically signaling. Basically, this webinar is not simply a conversation. It's essentially asking the potential Dutch partners that you look at the responsible and credible Bangladeshi face of business, but also at the same time for the Bangladeshi sides, entrepreneurs, potential business manufacturers, to see that this is the way that Dutch are looking at, Dutch are thinking, Dutch do think in terms of market and etc. But if the question is about anything specific, certainly broad question, I'm afraid we may not be able to respond directly, and I'm speaking almost in the Dutch spirit. But if there is a specific inquiry, certainly we are there and we do respond to that, or do look within our limitations. I hope one would bear with us with that. Yes, Matthias.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Maybe in addition, when supporting companies from Bangladesh which consider to export to the European Union or the Netherlands in a specific, there is an institute named CBI, which is part of the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is also providing a wide range of services such as studies and information about how to support, how to facilitate imports into the European Union, and that could also be of interest for Bangladeshi companies. CBI, would like to highlight that. Second question we got is for Marcel Schouten of LC Packaging. We understand you also have applied for certification for your activities in Bangladesh. What I see here in the question is apparently FSSC 22,000 and SA 8,000 certification. I'm not sure if that is correct, but could you elaborate a bit on how you safeguard, let's say, certification and certain standards in your facilities in Bangladesh?
Yes, I can, of course. So let's say, yeah, the SA 8000, that is the social accountability certification. I have to go back first to let's say when we entered a collaboration with FMO back in 2011, when we had our second phase expansion, we also needed, next to equity, we needed external financing. FMO was at that moment a right partner. They were always looking for opportunities like ours in a country as Bangladesh. And of course, they have a lot of expertise and experience in financing projects in emerging markets. So all in all, a good fit. Still today, FMO is a good partner of us, and our next phase of expansion is again co-financed with the help of FMO. But back then in 2011, FMO was also motivating us to go for the SA 8000 certification. FMO has also strong focus on CSR and sustainability, like LC Packaging. These aspects are also strong drivers at our company. So this SA 8000 certification was obtained in 2012, and since then we are holding it as one of the few companies in Bangladesh. It has been a great achievement. It has been hard work, a lot of challenges also. It was a real investment, not an investment, like you make an investment money-wise, that you say, what is the return on investment? It has to be in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So I think this is an investment which you should see as a lifetime investment. And you should not look at the return on investment on a short term. And like I said, when you go to Bangladesh, you also go for the long run. And in this perspective, such a certification like SA 8000 is also one which you make for a lifetime. And speaking about this SA 8000 certification, I would refer to a recent post on LinkedIn from our partner and managing director Abdul Muhammad. He placed a post on LinkedIn. And I really encourage everybody to read this post. Mr. Muhammad here, he speaks about the challenges that he's facing, that Bangladesh does not always have a positive image, poor working conditions, violation of human rights, building collapsing, etc. We all know it, of course, and based on such reports, Bangladeshi manufacturers are watched, of course, with suspicions. And he's mentioning that, at Dutch Bangla, in our example, the factory management, and our whole team is proving every day, that our more than 1,100 colleagues are well taken care of day by day. That we treat our people with dignity and respect. And by doing this, it also means that our products are not the cheapest, but still, then this should not be something to walk away from. There are. Of course, there are always buyers who feel that products coming from Bangladesh has to be, first of all, cheap. And we have to change that mindset. And I'm convinced that together we can also change this mindset. If I hear all these initiatives about light engineering, the opportunities, the quality, what is improving, then we are already on our way. And I can only encourage everybody to continue that way, because poor working conditions, I think that is a license, let's say a license to operate unfairly, and the cheapest products, they never go hand in hand with good working conditions. Low prices, I think, equals poor production. So Dutch Bangla and in many other companies, but okay, I can only speak about Dutch Bangla, let's say from a personal experience. We've chosen to invest in our people, and we've chosen to invest in our people because we think they are the valuable assets to our company. And I think the well-being of our colleagues is directly linked to, in the end, also a quality product. And this high standards, are, let's say, they are also a spin-off of our initial start back in 2012 with the SA 8000 certification. SA 8000, again, it manages and monitors social efforts. And it helps us to create an environment where employees have the opportunity to build their careers. And looking at Dutch Bangla as a spin-off, we go beyond these standards. We have initiated social programs like on-site healthcare checkups, free health insurance, daycare, for the children of the employees, fair price shopping for all the daily necessities. So I can say we walk the extra mile, and I believe that also customers will appreciate eventually and eventually pay a fair price to the products which are produced. And once more, FMO has been a true partner in this for LC Packaging and Dutch Bangla. And besides help and support from, let's say, FMO, the Dutch Embassy or RVO, it is something, again, which I can say, go for it, but you have to do it yourself, find trusted partners, and then I think we can have all ingredients to make a successful business in Bangladesh.
Thank you, Marcel. I mean, it's a pleasure to have you here in this panel and share your views of doing business in Bangladesh, really with paying attention to social responsibility, adding value locally to your organization. It also has its spin-off to the Bangladeshi economy in a broader sense. And I think this is you are with your organization an inspiring story for other international Dutch companies which might be considering to establish their activities in Bangladesh. You highlight your investments with respect to human resources to be very important. Maybe stepping towards Andre, you are, although maybe with a bit smaller setup in terms of human resources, but also running a substantial organization in Bangladesh. Could you elaborate a bit on human resources, especially on middle management? Because what we know from companies doing business in emerging high growth markets in Southeast Asia is that, first of all, finding the right partner, of course, is important to get started, but then to run the operations effectively, finding the right people, and especially middle management, is considered often as crucial for a successful operation. Could you elaborate a bit on how you set us up with BM Energy?
Yeah, excellent question, and of course for us also a very important topic to regularly discuss with our partners there. First of all, I think Bangladeshi people themselves are always very positive, hardworking, dedicated people. So I think that needs to be stressed as well. So when you look at labor in general, I think doing business in Bangladesh makes it a little bit easier because people are very dedicated. When we look at our own operation, I've been seeing the same faces in middle management for the last 10 years. That illustrates, I think, that we are doing the right thing with our people over there. You sort of get a family feeling, actually, when you see all those faces for so long time. We look after our people. I think we invest in them, and I think that the things Marcel mentioned about having facilities for people, for our workforce, is very important, investing in them. I agree. Look after the people and they will look after you. I think that's the key there.
Thank you, Andre. Katelijn, a question for you. We learned that FMO recently established a new fund, $40 million US fund facility, which is eyeing on supporting SMEs and so-called green financing in Bangladesh. Could you elaborate shortly where this is about and what will be potentially opportunities for Dutch or Bangladeshi companies to work with this initiative?
Yep, happy to do so. So we've provided with the German Development Bank DEG a facility to Eastern Bank for green and SME companies, which means that this is meant to increase the liquidity for SMEs in the Bangladeshi market, and companies can apply and reach out to Eastern Bank to see whether they would qualify for this financing. I think what we're doing with this is supporting the financial sector. I just want to get back to something that Marcel Schouten said on environmental and social, and also in the link to the financial sector, because you can get things done in Bangladesh. So a couple of years ago, we got the financial sector to sit down around the table with the shipwrecking industry. Shipwrecking industry is one that's very much associated with poor labor conditions and poor environmental situation. And we've been able to get the two sectors combined to set up a protocol. And if the shipwrecking companies do not meet those criteria, they will not get financing from the Dutch Bangla banks. So from the Bangladesh banks. So it is very important, and you're seeing that especially in the financial sector, but also outside of the financial sector, more and more companies and entities are realizing that importance. Obviously, if we can then have liquidity as we've provided to Eastern Bank next to it, then you have the two combined.
Excellent, Caroline. And just to be sure, this facility is already up and running, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, before I would like to give the floor to each of the panelists once more to wrap up and maybe give a summarizing story about what they perceive to be the most important opportunities in the light engineering segment in Bangladesh, and why they would welcome foreign investors, for example, from the Netherlands. I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Hamidullah to share his views on doing business in Bangladesh and the relation with respect to the Netherlands. Your Excellency.
Thank you, Matthias. Listening to everyone else and also having scoping of the light engineering industry, let me put the following in terms of what exists on the ground right now, what is possible and what is potential. Look at this. We have an industry, engineering industry owners association, which has a 40,000 fabulous membership. And I know, I can tell you that moving around this part of the world, this part of Europe, I can see every time that these are rudimentary SMEs, which if you can handhold them, and not simply as a matter of charity, but certainly as a win-win beneficial business outcome based on business principles, they can wonder magic. Look at Usma Chaudhary. When her father started the foundry industry in northern Bangladesh, no one ever thought of. Look at the import profile of Bangladesh. Almost $1 billion worth of spare parts are import substituted every year. Look at Rubana Haque, that she is a beneficiary of. When I say beneficiary, not in a negative sense, but in a very positive sense. Now, where from these are coming? These are coming from all these small shops, which we may also not look at, but they are the ones who are producing all the textile, garment industry, even boilers, for example, paper mill, cement mill, all kind of spare parts. Now, why do I say, is this something rudimentary offshore? Not at all. The way China emerged and the way China is today, and it's even going to be tomorrow, is essentially in terms of looking at the local, regional, and global supply chains. That's why I see an opportunity, and that's why this is a sleeping giant, light engineering sector in Bangladesh. Many of you have already, a couple of you have already said that there are mid-management people are adaptive, skilled, open, and amenable to skills adaptation. That's what the starting point. I can tell you, only confide to you, even though it's an open platform, that I know that I was privy to a conversation with some of the big countries from Asia, where they're looking at it very significantly and trying to map that how the potential Bangladesh light engineering industry, breaking into different segments, can eventually be part of their supply chain. Because if you look at automotive and automobile industry, that's what they're looking at very seriously. So problem and challenge is that we don't have the mapping or the numbers here, which would kind of excite someone like the agriculture, food, or maybe water and maritime sector. But that's actually the opportunity. Climate change, for example, or move slightly beyond. Every single home appliances, for example, we are making. Right now, we're just going to ride a new kind of wave through the fair electronics, you said, or maybe these handphone operators, or the refrigerator and others, including Pran RFL, for example. Now, when you are to enable those through 4IR devices, let's an IoT device, or make it, bring in other technologies even, that's the opportunity. That's what I see. So it's not the conventional technology of last 10, 20 years of sunset industries, but to leapfrog, that's where I see potential of a Rotterdam-based or Eindhoven-based, even a small farm or family to kind of chip in and beneficially get engaged and have a gainful outcome. If you ask me to name very rapidly, for example, I look at power and energy. So a country where we are to go for, let's say, hundreds of power plants, every single power plant, that's how one of the companies in Bangladesh like Energy Pack started, and they are today. So that's what I'm actually looking at, and I believe that small Dutch SMEs, for example, has a tremendous amount of opportunity. Fiber. Rubana Haq mentioned, for example, about fiber. Jute we spoke about it in the agriculture webinar, but when a Sweden-based farm or maybe BMW and even Airbus is looking at blending jute fiber with synthetic fiber and coming out with new fiber, Dutch Design Week is exactly looking at that. 2018, they mulled over that, I know for sure. So it's simply not going to Amsterdam or Rotterdam or even Amphi, for instance, and talking to them just as a matter of conversation. It's a very, very serious piece of business, which perhaps is not visible in the horizon. I'm not, frankly, very much attuned to bicycle industry. Yes, bicycle would be coming eventually to a saturation point because of competition and because of already the way the market is structured. But I'm looking at all these, not simply in Bangladesh, because eventually if one looks at making a footprint in Bangladesh with the knowledge solution innovation from Netherlands, collaborating with the existing players like Symphony, Fair Electronics, Konka, many others are there, and then to encourage, then they were ready to accept that, then to offer to them that, look, we can have a hand-holding partnership, and then we can go to other markets beyond Bangladesh and Netherlands. Market, I'm pretty sanguine that market would be eventually in Africa and many other places if we can break the ceiling, glass ceiling of the FMCG. That's where I see tremendous amount of energy and potential, which is perhaps because of the absence of facts and figures, and because it's not so organized, we are not being able to see. The same would apply for agro-machinery. We just heard about it also from Dr. Ansari and Mr. Shahjahan in the previous panel, and we could understand that we're just actually touching the tip of the iceberg, not yet seeing it. That's why my pitch would be that when if you just look around the small operators in Bangladesh in terms of the SMEs, go to Bogura, Jessore, or maybe not simply Old Dhaka, one would understand these are not copycats. These are individuals who are homegrown, and if you look at the chat books carefully, many of them have actually spoken out. I was actually sifting through their messages. There's small engineering shops and everything, and we know, for example, and you'd hear it in the water panel as well, that how some of them have actually phenomenally contributed to the growth of Bangladeshi shipbuilding industry, not shipbreaking at all. I'm not interested, neither is Bangladesh interested in shipbreaking. But what is of potential, what is of great importance is to look at from even our view and FMO point of view, is to handhold and eventually to yield significantly higher return from many other conventional industries. In the interest of time, I'll put a lead on here, but I hope I tried to kind of bring in some without elaboration as to the potential, which is just not visible, but certainly ask for us to take a very serious note. And I'm ready to open to any conversation with anyone here in Netherlands or elsewhere at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for pinpointing these opportunities. Before I would like to give the floor for each of the panelists to shortly give a 1 minute wrap up. I have a couple of questions which I would like to ask. I think we have a bit of time left. One is for Ms. Usma Choudhury. One of the questions from the audience is, what about your initiatives in the field of biodegradable packaging? Is that typically something you look at, which might have applications for agro-food, but also for other specialty chemical initiatives? Do you have any experience in that field?
Yes, absolutely. We are working on it. However, we are lack on the technology. We need to get the technology so that we can develop here. That would be something that we can integrate in Bangladesh with the agricultural sector, and it would be a win-win situation for the agricultural sector as well as any other sector in Bangladesh.
Excellent. Yeah, I know that there are a number of companies, but also university spin-offs and initiatives working on more sustainable packaging, and they are also eyeing on new markets such as in Southeast Asia. So I guess that's something we should follow up after this session. Maybe a last question to Dr. Hoek. So in terms of developing the business and capacity building, it was already raised by Mr. Schouten and Mr. Hendricks, the importance of human capital. What is your perspective in this matter, and also looking at your association, how would you perceive a potential partnership with the Netherlands in the field of human capital development?
I mean, it would be more than welcome, because you see, we are lacking in skills still. And most of our workers are basically not educated enough. So, you know, with the fourth industrial revolution and with onshoring going on, and with we are now semi-automated. So we are approximately automated by 7%. It's going to rise to around 25% by 2024. So we need them to be reskilled. So reskilling is an area where we will invite any kind of collaboration, and you know, human resources is what we thrive on. So for us, any suggestion, any helping hand, any investment in order to develop human resources would be more than welcome.
Excellent. Well, we take this message forward also to the embassies of both countries and the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. A short 60-second wrap up, and then I would like to ask Marcel your recommendations for Dutch companies considering to invest in Bangladesh.
Yes, Matthias. Yes, well, to start, I would say, you know, when you invest, invest in quality, invest in infrastructure, invest in training, and then in the field, wherever your investment takes place, absolutely you will get your return. So don't be shy, and don't act like, you know, still, let's say the most of, let's say, the buyers in the Western world are like that. Products from Bangladesh automatically are associated with the word cheap. That is something we need to get rid of. And although it takes time, we see that it works. You know, we've seen it ourselves, and maybe it goes slow, but you know, we also receive encouraging messages from customers. Lately there was a big sugar processing company who said, you know, that companies like Dutch Bangla should be proud of a positive change that they are creating and the building blocks they are forming for a positive perception in the long run. And so, you know, such feedbacks, you know, that gives you energy, of course, and also the commitment to continue what we are doing. And so invest in quality, invest in training, and you will get your return. And last but not least, of course, get together with a trusted and capable partner locally. Together with these ingredients, success is almost guaranteed. And I would like to finish off what the Dutch ambassador already mentioned in his speech at the beginning. You know, that the next Asian tiger, most probably it is a Bengal tiger, and well, I fully agree with that. So thank you for the opportunity, Matthias, you gave me to elaborate a bit more about our adventures in Bangladesh.
It's an honor to have you here, Marcel, and I'm glad to learn that with the right parameters, success in Bangladesh is almost guaranteed. I'll take that into account. André, your 1 minute final summary.
Well, yeah, thank you again. And Marcel did do some of the things, or already said some of the things I probably would like to stress as well. So doing business in Bangladesh is interesting, challenging, but very promising, and so far so good. Marcel said it sometimes takes a bit longer, and I think it doesn't have to do with Bangladesh as such, but more in the optimistic nature of the people in Bangladesh. I think people in Bangladesh are very optimistic, and that's always, well, let's say the pleasure of doing business in Bangladesh. The optimism is there. And that optimism sometimes maybe leads to optimistic prognosis and forecast in the sense of, okay, we can do this by the end of the year. Are you sure? Yeah. I'm quite sure we can do this by the end of the year. Well, it's already December. Oh yeah, maybe January. But and that illustrates maybe that it takes sometimes a bit longer than we think, but it gets done. And coming to Bangladesh for almost more than 10 years now, I've seen the progress of the country, and they make things happen. So if you're interested in Bangladesh, do it. Go for it. Find yourself the right partner. That is what Marcel also indicated, and success will be there. So yeah.
Excellent, André. We run a bit out of time, but I would like to give the other panelists also shortly the floor. Katelijn, some final remarks on Bangladesh. When can companies call you?
Well, that's not 1, 2, 3 an easy answer. So I think there needs to be obviously a good business plan and good growth opportunities before we'll start looking at it. And like André and Marcel also said, we very often work with the local partners that we trust and we know. I think if you're interested in investing in Bangladesh, the first word that came to my mind was 2 words actually. One is patience. So take your time. André gave a good example of that just now, but also look past the present image of Bangladesh with all the negative connotations to it of cheap and child labor, because there's a lot more to Bangladesh than that image, and the panelists all here have all seen that in the past, and none of us are withdrawing from Bangladesh, so we're convinced that there's a future there. Thank you.
Excellent. Very summary. Ms. Usma Chuduri, what would you recommend for Dutch companies?
Bangladesh is started doing its industrialization, and we are going to boom. So I would say, like, if you can put us in the right track in environmental protection, environmental safety, that would be something that we need to learn from our friends like Dutch people. As that is something that we need to start practicing from today. Otherwise, it becomes very hard for us to learn something when we have grown the habit. So if there is any collaboration for our environmental protection, climate control, that is the time where you can invest now. Financial investment will come anyway. Industrialization will take its own course, but these are some of the things that will remain unlearned for a long time unless somebody comes and imposes that on us.
Thank you. Dr. Hoek, as the final panelist, I would like to give you the floor for some remaining advice.
Thank you very much. One thing is Bangladesh does need a lot of branding support. For instance, I just heard one of the panelists saying about child labor. There is no child labor in RMG sector. We've been child labor free since 1994. So that's one. Number 2, we would like to welcome opportunities of collaboration in 2 other areas. Well, actually, we must also consider recycling. You know, Bangladesh, I forgot to say, has more than 400,000 tons of post-production textile waste every year. And there is a huge $4 billion worth of businesses lost annually. So that is a business we can jointly grab because it's mostly informalized. And, you know, our waste is not, you know, separated at source. So if that's an area we can work with, there's a huge possibility in recycling. That's one. And of course, spare parts is something that we'd be deeply interested in. And like I also tried mentioning that very often SMEs are not linked to FDIs. And I was hearing Excellency saying that, you know, there's a lot of chat messages by them. It's important for them to be also linked with, you know, businesses which are already going forward, because we have an intention to diversify. So if we could also within our own selves have a separate conversation, and I reach out to all the SMEs who want some guidance or some support or some help or friendly advice, we'd be happy to partner with them along with external collaboration. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being a part of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Hook, and I think it was a pleasure to have you all here during the panel discussion. Closing this webinar, I would like to shortly recap. I think what we learned is Bangladesh is a promising market, and there are opportunities in virtually all segments of the engineering manufacturing industries. To name a few: electronics, software, automotive, and specialty chemicals. Food processing, textiles, in which, of course, Bangladesh already has a strong position, but maybe looking at the diversification or more local value added. Definitely, and that's what we've seen from a number of investors from the Netherlands, local production for the local market, for example, with BM Energy, but also as a regional manufacturing facility for supplying other markets in Asia with LC Packaging. I think these are clear examples of Dutch companies which have established a flourishing business in Bangladesh. I would like to thank all of you, and especially His Excellency Ambassador Hamidullah for initiating this initiative, and also my colleague Zahed out of Dhaka of Light Castle Partners, with whom Larif is also in partnership and have established this initiative of webinars. Thank you all, and I think this will be continued. So we hope to see you all in Bangladesh in 2021.
Matthias?
Yeah,
Matthias,
Mr.
Just two quick words for everyone, including the panelists, that we will be having the third webinar tomorrow, 9 Dutch time, on water and maritime, if someone is interested. But more importantly, on Thursday, Dhaka time, 5 in the evening, and Dutch time, 12 at noon, we'll have the launching of a very fascinating study, perhaps the first ever in case of any foreign country and Bangladesh economic engagements, as also by an embassy. And I think everyone, if time permitting, could just click there. You'll find it quite fascinating first, perhaps. So on that note, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Well, with these words, I think we can end this session. Thank you all, and looking forward to extend and continue our business in Bangladesh. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.